Let's go ahead and give it up for Josh Forman. He's going to go ahead and do web development tips and tricks.
Okay. All right, thanks again, everybody. So my name is Josh Forman. I'm here to talk about web development, menagerie of concepts, tips and tricks, and advice on how to succeed. My agenda for the evening is I'm going to just discuss a little bit about me, because I know you're all just don't know who I am. And then, inside joke there, camera. So then I'm going to talk a little bit about Give First. That's something that's really important to me. Creating big solutions, give before you take, development tips, and then career paths for tech talent. Try to broaden your perspective a little bit if I can. I'm just going to move this so it's a little easier for me to get to. Okay, so a little bit about me. I've got a wide breadth of experience and depth of experience. I've been a consultant. I've been a business technology consumer. I've worked inside technology product companies, startups, and in systems integrators. And in all those companies, I've had over 20 years, 9 years as a hands-on coder, 9 years as a various vice president level positions, and then most recently founded a company in the last year and having a lot of fun and excitement doing that. Okay, so the first thing is give first. So, and you'll probably hear that a lot here in the community, but I'm a big believer in that you got to give before you can get. And so pledgeonecolorado.org is a site that you should check out, especially if you're a founder of a company or involved or you have any of your own equity. It's basically a pledge that you'll give 1% of, if your stock or whatever your equity is becomes worth anything, you're pledging to give 1% back to the community, right? Boulder is such a great place to have a startup in this area because of the community and the people, and the community is so great because there's so much interplay between the companies and the people who work in them and society in general. So that's kind of what give back is. Better communities make for stronger companies, and stronger companies make for better communities. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to say that, there we go. Okay, create big solutions there we go, solving small problems, right? So I like to try to think as big as I can about what it is I want to achieve or what you want to do, both individually, in your own career, in your teams, in your job. And then, but you want to be able to create those big solutions by solving as small of a problem as possible. Okay, so that sounds really great. How do you do that? Or I don't know, it sounds great to me. Maybe, I don't know if it sounds great to you or not. But if it does, then here's a way to think about doing that. So if your goal is to create big solutions and your strategy is to solve small problems, well, that leads to a lower level goal to solve small problems, and your strategy to do that is to run small experiments. And to do that, ask yourself, what is the least amount of work that I can do that will lead to the most knowledge, the most that I can learn, right? You want to be as efficient as possible. You want to be as lazy as possible, right? You don't want to do a lot of work to learn this much if you could do this much work and learn this much, right? And this is the way that I frame this whole agile movement, right? I distill it down to this: is move in small iterations, do small sprints, create working code, all that kind of stuff. To me, comes down to what's the least amount of work I can do that will lead to the most learning. And I try to apply that in everything again here. I'm hoping that what I'm saying here applies to really every aspect of your career development, what you do on the job, what you do in your job search, or whatever it is that you're doing. We use this in running nonprofits, right? All kinds of areas this comes in handy. Okay, so what does this mean to me? So specifically now I kind of go back and forth a little bit. If we put on the developer hat, what exactly does this mean? Like if we try to get tactical about this as a developer, You want to break your code into small chunks, right? Okay, you got here's a big solution. You want to solve small problems, and you want to be able to put them all and then line them all together. So you break your code into small chunks, and then you work on one chunk at a time, and then you stub out your calls, right? So if this piece in the middle needs to get something from here and then spit out output to here, we'll just fake those points till you solve this problem. And now you think of the train car, right? It's loosely coupled. So now you've got this train car constructed. Now move to the next train car that's got this coupling here. So you can grab this data and use it to transfer the weight of the train forward. And now you construct this car. And then you just keep moving down the line until pretty soon you've got an engine and a caboose and the whole train is moving down the track. Does that make sense? Okay, good. See a lot of nodding heads, great. All right, now we're gonna go back to our non-developer hat, or this works for developers, but just kind of in general. So give back, right? So I talked a bit about giving back with the Pledge 1%. Now I'm gonna get a little bit more personal about this as like a strategy in making your way in the, again, I'm in the tech community, so I'll say tech community, but I think this works anywhere. So if at all possible, you wanna make a deposit before you make a withdrawal. This is like if you're out like looking for work, I think this has a very applicable use case, but fits other places as well. So you want to get an interview, or you want to have a conversation with someone at a company to see if they have any advice for you or can help make any introductions. Always think, is there something that I can do for that person before I, ask for something back? And one thing that's really important to note is that there's 3 ways to give. And I learned this when I was on my daughter in her PTA meetings in elementary school, right? And when we'd be talking about how do we get parents more involved in the PTA, we always talked about, well, can we get people to give time, talent, or treasure, right? Those are the 3 things that you ask. One or more than one or whatever, but always one of those things is how you think about how you can give. So when you're going out and making your way and networking and meeting people and having conversations, don't think that you need a whole bunch of treasure, right? And there's some pretty interesting studies on that. One of my favorite books, Lewis Hyde in The Gift, he talks about the commodity economy versus the gift economy. And then really recently, I read this other book by Dan Ariely. He's a famous behavioral economist. And he wrote this book, Predictably Irrational. And he talked about market norms versus social norms. And all these are like, if you think market norms, commodity economy, that's where, like, it's just, things are just transaction-based. Think commodities, gas is a commodity, oil is a commodity, pork bellies are a commodity. Once you move into the gift economy or social norms, though, things change. And it's really, Dan Ariely here talks about this really interesting experiment where he works at Duke University. In fact, I've been to his research lab in Duke University. I went there, and it's called, this is kind of funny, the Center for Advanced Hindsight. Is the name of his center, his little research lab in Duke University. And he talks about this experiment that he ran where he sold Hershey Kisses at whatever the student body center is there on campus. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but where lots of students are moving around the halls, right? And so he started them off at something like 10 cents a Hershey's Kiss, and then he kept lowering the price, 5 cents, 4 cents, 3 cents. Just like you would predict, the lower the price got, the more the average person bought, right? They started buying 2 and 3 and 4 at a time. When it went from 1 cent to 0 cent, people only took 1. So the laws of economy would say, well, shoot, if it just keeps like the lower the price gets, the more people take, you go to 0, they should start hoarding the stuff. But it totally dropped, and people started taking way less. The average went way down when you went to free. And he kind of equated this to, think about if you're at your family Thanksgiving dinner, Aunt Mary, whoever, and you just have this great meal, and you're, oh, Aunt Mary, that was so awesome, thanks. The turkey was great, and the pumpkin pie was awesome, so what do I owe you, You just don't do that. You're in the social norm. You're in the gift economy in there. So when you're out something to think about when you're thinking about giving back, right? Think about how can you give time and talent, because it turns out that they have a higher value than treasure when it comes to those gift economy, social norms, where you're like, there's a real exchange. You're not just you're not just executing a transaction. Does that make sense too? Absolutely. Before I go there, I'm just going to stop here. Any questions? All right. How am I doing on time? I didn't look.
You still got like 10, 15 minutes, but it doesn't have to be exact.
Okay. So now we're going back to the developer hat, and I'm going to talk to you something about tactics for troubleshooting, how I troubleshoot when I love developing. I was a developer in the beginning of my career, and then I went into management, had these vice president level positions, and then recently went back to Codecraft and founded this company and gotten hands on the keyboard again, and it's just awesome. It's really great. And so one of the things that I've learned that I do now is, when I was left a developer last time, I was doing Google searches, but there wasn't a lot of it. And now the internet's just a huge, vast resource. So when I come across a problem, I do a Google search, and almost always towards the top is W3 Schools, the MDM, Mozilla Developer Network, and some Stack Overflow links. And this is how I've learned what I do. I go to W3 Schools if I want basic syntax on a specific command, right? Like a substring, string.substring, or array.find, or something like that. Just one command and just some basic syntax. If I want the full spec on a given command, because I want to see what the options are, what parameters I can pass, then I go to Mozilla Developer Network. And if I want help on a very specific code fragment to do a very specific thing, then I go to Stack Overflow. And that's where like you get really specific there. And then if you don't find what you need, then I ask a question on Stack Overflow. And I did that just in the last 6 months. It's a little nervous, like asking your first question, like make sure you do it right and all that kind of stuff. But I would just encourage you to like take the plunge and do it. If you've got a question, it's kind of fun to get that help back. All right, and then don't reinvent the wheel. Now, Eddie over here, who's behind the camera, he works for me at the startup I have, and in the highest regard, Eddie is very lazy. Like, he doesn't want to do anything that somebody's done before, and I'm always saying, hey, can you go build this? And then the next day he comes back, hey, I found this parsing library. It's like, whoa, saved all that time. Hey, Eddie, go do this. Oh, I found this, this code fragment here to help do that. So, yeah. So, again, don't be afraid to be lazy. Do as little work as you can to learn as much as you can, and reuse stuff that's already out there. Don't be afraid to take someone else's stuff. When I do that, I usually put in the comments a link to the code to kind of give whoever it was that developed it some credit. And then if you have some problems or you don't understand it, you can always go back to that link. Comment your code like crazy. That's another thing I would say.
Are you using Eddie's libraries that he's finding?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Uh-huh. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
He's why I wrote this.
Awesome.
Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit for those who are looking for work, or even those who are like just kind of engaging, or even if you're midway through. I want to talk a little bit about the job market for developers. Like I said, I've had a lot of experience in a lot of different kinds of technology companies. And here's some interesting, what you might find interesting stats. So Stack Overflow 2015 survey showed that developers, this is like hands-on developers, and this is self-reported information from the developers, that 42% work for a technology company. Over half work for a company where technology is not the primary value proposition, right? So this is an IT department or a technology office inside of, name it, banks. I was at a natural foods grocer. I've worked at a telecom company, right? There's lots of places where you can do really cool stuff and you don't have to work for a technology company. And then 7% in consulting. And then this is interesting. Now look at the United States. The numbers change a little bit. You get over 60% you're working for in a company where technology is not the primary value proposition. About a third at a technology company and still 7% at a consulting company. So just want to make you think, that you can think big. You don't have to work at a product company. And that may be where your passion is, but you can still there's lots of opportunities to work in other kinds of situations. So now just a quick tour through the technology product lifecycle. Right? Technology is created, marketed, sold, bought, implemented, supported, adopted, and expanded. Right? This is, as far as I can see it. Maybe I'm missing a bubble here. I could be open for that, but this covers a lot of the basics. And so a technology product company, right, does these 6 things, and this is the supporting the technology product users in adopting and expanding, but it's the users that actually adopt and expand. They're partners in implementing. Clearly, the product company is creating, marketing, and selling, and then the product users are buying. So just giving you an idea of how the landscape here. And then technical roles. Now, this is specifically inside a product company because this is where I've had the most recent experience. Right, is that you can see there's lots of different ways that you can have that technical expertise, be doing even hands-on work, but you don't have to be like this. Developer is what a lot of people think of, like I'm a developer, you're creating the product. You could be a product manager and be involved in marketing. You can be a sales engineer. Like that's a really great role for people who are really personable and like the selling, but are also very technical. These are highly skilled roles inside of technology product companies that are very valued because you're helping close deals. Implementation, this is where I spent a lot of my time, is an implementation where you help on the tail end of the sale, and then you're the first ones that the customer sees. You're the face of the company in the very beginning of the process. And then you got customer success, which is where you are helping them adopt the product and expand it. And this, you don't have to, could be considered a slightly less technical. If you like the technical side, but like really getting into those JavaScript calls is just a little bit more than you really wanted to do, but you still like the flow of things. You like understanding what's going on behind the scenes, and you really like people. Customer success could be a really great place where you could find your fit. That's it. Question? Thank you. Questions?
Well, I was just wondering, you're saying that on that last one, the client-facing part, back one slide, you were saying that you would have some,
whoops, that wasn't good.
Some contact with JavaScript as well in that role? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes. In the customer success role?
Customer success role, yeah.
Well, I mean,
to work with technology in a more intimate way. It's not just.
Boy, I'm not good at this.
You don't need to pull it back out. That's fine. But if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the company, but yeah, you could still be getting into the product here, into the code level. Now, I worked at a company that we built an app on top of Salesforce.com, and this role was all in Salesforce. Like they really knew sales. They were like master Salesforce administrators, and they could do all the advanced configuration. So you weren't in JavaScript. It was still quite a technical role. So it kind of depends on what your stack is so when you say JavaScript, I just hesitate on saying yeah, but if you're on the mean stack or the MERN stack or the LAMP stack even, right, you could be getting into JavaScript at that place. Yep. Yeah.
Where does UX and UI fall in that?
That's a good question, actually. I created this a couple years ago, and that's kind of really come about as a whole separate thing, and that would be here. Yeah, around the created, marketed side, because but you are kind of, it's almost like there would be a little bit of a wormhole to the customer, because you're trying to get that customer feedback early and bring it into the product here.
I would say UI falls towards the beginning, but UX is really more.
Yeah, like,
So a UX person at Netflix doesn't care about where the buttons are. They don't care about what the page looks like. They care about when somebody who loves old documentaries from the 20s comes to Netflix, are they going to find enough old documentaries from the 20s in the face? Like, they're not really dealing with the flows. They're dealing with the user experience.
got it.
The user experience has more to do with, can the customer find what the customer needs through our product, right? And I don't think a lot of people realize that about UX.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is that UX really has very little to do with visual design or the way things are laid out. That's all UI.
Right.
So UI really falls in the beginning of the process.
UI is a subset of
But
UX.
UX is really more what's happening at the end. It's like, what is the actual experience that the user's having with our product and the company? And that can be
Cool.
whether they're getting good support, whether they like the way the product works. It has actually very little to do with the way things look.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
More about UX. Other questions, guys?
Can you just share more about the, give before you get, or you ask for a favor in terms of how, like a practical example?
Yeah.
Something if you're out, you can connect.
Yeah, yeah. So, so the first thing is like if there's any like the.
Would you mind repeating her question?
Oh yeah,
So
sure.
we can hear it in the camera.
Great, yeah, thanks. So the question was ask a little bit more details on the give before you get, like when you're out talking to people, like how can you practice that, right? That was the question?
Yep.
I mean, I give a lot, but
Yeah,
specifics
yeah.
working in business context.
So the first thing I would say is that the people who are on that dev faction admin that Eric showed earlier, they're giving before they're asking, right? So if you can get involved in any bigger group, a nonprofit, a meetup, or get anything started so that there's some context there, right? And then when you're out and you're meeting people, like if meeting someone here, oh, you're a part of making that happen. Well, there's already some gift exchange going on if someone were here, right? Because you help them have this experience. And then even when you're out and about, when you're not in this particular context, you're still doing something for the community at large. So that's one thing, is just like get involved, do something that you can do to get involved, so that you can give first. Then with particular people, you can find out what they're interested in or what groups they belong to, and if you're kind of targeting, although I'm not a real big fan of like finding someone and targeting someone, saying, oh, this is the person I want to meet, but you could do that. And then the other thing is, when you're meeting with someone, is always ask, what can I do for you? Is there anything I can do for you? Even if like this is some venture capital who's, think what would they want to, what could I do for them? Ask anyway, because at least it shows there's a willingness to give. Does that make sense? And then you got to just play it by ear for the specific use case, but those are some general things that you can do.
Then you can always volunteer for the faction. Any other questions, guys, for Josh?
Okay.
Let's give it up for
Thanks a
Josh.
lot.
That was awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you, sir.